Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is James Roberts. We are joined this evening by John Gallagher. John, welcome.
Thank you, James.
This evening's show is the August 22nd edition of Effective, Efficient, Affordable, and above all accountable to you, the show that takes a look at government here in Winsted and asks, did you know when you elected Marianne Welcome that her sole interest in office was to act as a defender of a school board that has gone rogue? This evening's topics will be twofold. Number one, we'll do a quick review of the events of Monday, Board of Selectmen meeting, the School Data Committee, and two, obviously, we'll tackle the budget. Let's give a quick summary for those of you who are going to flip channels as to what we mean by the budget.
The budget was sent to the electors at the town meeting. The town meeting chose not to change the budget. It is going intact. I believe Henry gave the mill rate at 25.51.
Something along those lines.
Something along those lines. You know, the attendance was low. I think one of the votes was like 40 to
16.
16 or something like that. So nothing. Nothing challenging coming out of the budget meeting. The challenge is that the Board of Selectmen really never addressed any of the issues. I mean, we are not consolidating. We haven't looked at consolidating the financials. We haven't looked at, you know, restructuring the contracts. We haven't looked at closing a school. I mean, we are pulling monies out of any infrastructure improvement that we have, and we're going forward essentially with a contract that's not that hasn't been ratified by the union, with a savings of supposedly
$75,000.
Yeah, I was going to say 100, but somewhere in there.
Bottom line, Saturday, September 8th is the next referendum. Taxes are going up. You're getting nothing for it. No problems have been solved. No reinvestment, no roads, no bridges, no nothing. We will be voting no. We urge you to vote no too. The mechanics for absentee voting, as always, are relatively simple.
Very simple. You have until September 7th to go to the town clerk's office. September 7th would be a Friday. Friday they're open until noon. Thursdays are open until 7 o'clock. Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesdays, I believe they're open till 4 or 4:30.
4, I believe.
4, I believe. You go in, you present yourself, you present your ID, usually a driver's license. You obtain a application, you fill out the application right there. You then turn it in, ask for a ballot. You get the ballot, you go in the back room if you want privacy. You check off either yes or no. There's two answers. You put it in the inner envelope. You then put the inner envelope in another envelope. You seal it. You sign it, or you sign the inner one, and then you give it back to the clerk. Best way to do it, if you are away and you want it mailed to you, you should be doing it right now. I mean, call the town clerk. You'll have to ask her to fax you an absentee ballot application. Or can you get them online?
You can get them online from the state database, or actually the town database also has it. You can print it off online. If you choose to print it straight from the website, you have to scale down the size of the document, otherwise it will not all print out. And if you send in an incomplete document, you will not get a ballot. It's that simple.
Right. So you can take it, you can print it, you can fill it out, and I believe you can fax it to the town clerk. You'll have to call her for the fax number, but then you will receive a ballot in the mail, and you go through the same process. But it takes about a week, so the cutoff date, I would assume, would be the end of August if you want to do it that way. But you have right until the 7th to go in and vote in the office, the 7th at noon.
So bottom line, Saturday, September 8th, next opportunity to vote. Vote no if you believe, as we do, that this budget is increasing taxes without addressing a single problem.
8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Pearson School.
We will come back to the budget in greater detail later in the program. Let me start with a quick review of the Board of Selectmen meeting this past Monday. This was the long-awaited report from the School Data Committee. By way of background, as you will recall, the Board of Education has delivered a very clear and simple message to this community. The Board of Education has said, we do not wish to close a building. We will not close a building. We do not believe we physically can close a building, and we do not believe that we will save any money were we to close a building. The community obviously has spent the last several months laughing at the Board of Education, laughing at these claims, and Mayor Wellcome decided that she would convene a committee that would, by its intent, prove the Board of Education right. The work of this committee was designed to whitewash the claims of the Board of Education. This report was delivered on Monday. Marianne Wellcome promised us empirical data to show that a building could not be closed and would actually cost us money. Well, the first thing we noted, anyone who actually saw that meeting, attended that meeting, watched it on TV, was that there was no data at all. Various reports were cited. We learned to our considerable amazement that the Rural School Trust does not believe that rural schools should be eliminated. Equally surprising was the news that the Pennsylvania School Board Association is not a supporter of the elimination of Pennsylvania school boards. The closest we got to data, ladies and gentlemen, was the idea that petty functionaries in towns such as our own do not wish to see their jobs eliminated, something which I think every taxpayer here in town already knows. That's the closest we got in data. Any information on the costs of running a school and therefore the savings of closing a school? No, none. Any information on the supposed costs that we would incur should we close a school? I would be hard-pressed to call this data, but some figures were provided, many of them entirely bogus, not the least of which was this notion that were the school board to close a school and turn it over to the town, they will continue to pay to heat that building and to maintain that building. This is not true. If the school board closes a building, the school board ceases to pay anything in respect of that school. If you want proof of that, go check out the budget and look for the Greenwoods School line item. You'll recall that we got rid of the Greenwood School some 10, 15, 20 years ago. We have not been paying maintenance or utilities on the Greenwood School, and we would not be paying maintenance or utilities on any other school we closed. Now the school board, and it really was the school board who was doing the presenting here, not the school data committee or whatever. The school board went to considerable lengths to prove that every square inch of every school was being fully utilized. There was an architect present, there were floor plans, there were colored charts. No square inch left unused. This is news, ladies and gentlemen. This is extraordinary news. After all, we have just come off a school year in which a complete floor of Pearson lies empty. Much of Batchelor lies empty. Much of Hinsdale lies empty. And yet the school board maintains that every square inch is used. Just 1 year ago, there were 200 extra kids in our schools, the 7th and 8th grades. According to the school board, there is no physical space that could possibly have housed the 7th and 8th grades. They were probably locked in the bathrooms or left in their cars or the school buses out in the car park. The fact of the matter is, there's plenty of empty space in the schools. There is plenty of capacity to consolidate down to 2 schools. You know so, I know so, the school board's own consultants know so. Had the school board's consultants' plan been followed, Pearson would be under demolition right now and the entire school system would be housed in 2 schools. Everyone knows this, not least of which the Board of Selectmen. No, none of the other selectmen could persuade themselves to support this charade. Deputy Mayor Perez, who's normally very voluble on the subject of matters schools, was silent. George Clausen, who was foolish enough to lend his name to this report, silent. Jim DeVita, ex-member of the Board of Education, could be counted on to have a view, silent. Mike Renzullo, the most reliable yes man on the crew, silent. They were all shocked into embarrassment by this charade. But the most striking thing, ladies and gentlemen, was not the fact that the selectmen couldn't bring themselves to support this. The most striking thing was the unabashed glee with which Mayor Wellcome made her presentation. Our mayor was pleased to inform us that she views her job as mayor as being first and foremost a teacher, and as supporting the position of herself and her fellow adults for whom the schools apparently work. That was the report of the School Data Committee, and I think we're laughing just as hard now as we were before. On to the budget. What's in the budget?
They say it's zero, but I don't think it's zero.
Candy, Deputy Mayor Perez, actually got herself quoted in the newspaper telling us it was zero. Spending is up, she said, but the taxes are not. Spending is up, but the taxes are not. That would be an untruth. Shame to say, an untruth. Now, it was probably, quite possibly, an honest mistake. We make mistakes, you make mistakes, I make mistakes. And generally, we try to correct our mistakes. 10 days have gone by, and there has been no correction. Candy has not walked back her statement that the taxes are not up. And when you make a mistake, and you know it's a mistake, and you fail to correct it, we begin to call it a lie. It would seem that the Board of Selectmen is happy to lie to get their budget passed. They are happy to tell you that there is no increase in taxes in order to get you to vote for an increase in taxes. Now,
and that goes back to the meeting. I mean, it goes back to the town meeting when I when I asked, where's the presentation? By charter, Section 1108 of the charter, adoption of the budget, you have to give a presentation, you have to give an estimated mill rate. The Board of Selectmen, not the Finance Director, the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen have to present it and give it. First two budget meetings they did. This one they did not.
And the reason they did not, quite frankly, is because, well, partly they didn't know what's in their own budget, and partly they didn't want to tell you what's in their own budget, because they're afraid you might not vote for it, were you to know. Now, let's be clear, ladies and gentlemen. The fact that they have lied is not a reason to turn down the budget. If we are to turn down the budget, we should do so because it's a bad budget. And it is a bad budget. It is just as bad as the first two budgets that you turned down in overwhelming fashion. What's in it? A tax increase. Another $200,000 of tax increase. And if you say yes to this one, you will have increased taxes in 2 out of the last 3 budgets. So let's forget this nonsense about always having a zero. There's very few zeros, ladies and gentlemen. 2 out of 3 is a whole lot of tax increases. And what's this tax increase for? Well, it's for the same as the last 2 tax increases.
Paying benefits.
Yeah, nothing of real, lasting, incremental value. More pay, more benefits, more consultants. For the same people doing the same thing which hasn't worked. Just throwing money at failure for the sake of throwing money at failure in the hopeless, hopeless hope that perhaps it'll work better this time. No roads, no bridges. If you think that schools is where the empty hole is, there's nothing for you. There's no money for schools. There's no transition, no backup for Henry. They took that out. There's nothing for the fund balance. It's just pay and benefits. Another tax increase for pay and benefits. So let's just step back. What do we need a budget to do?
First of all, you're going to have to reduce. And you have to reduce because the grand list is about to collapse. The grand list will collapse come, December 1st. And then you'll know what your house is worth and what you're paying on a yearly basis to live in that house. In many other states, when the value of the asset declines, the percentage remains fixed and you get a reduced amount of money that they collect in taxes from that asset. In Connecticut, when it's reduced, they just up the mill rate. So they take the same amount of money from the tax base, but what happens is it shifts on properties that will never recover. You will create a ghetto.
Right. The reval is coming, ladies and gentlemen. We all know the reval is coming. We all know what it's going to show. Grand list goes down. Share of taxes shifts somewhat to the periphery. But the net result is the people who live downtown will see the values of their properties dramatically cut and will not see a similar cut in their taxes. And the people who live out of town will see dramatic increases in their taxes. And if the mayor gets her way and this is phased in over 5 years, the impact is even greater. If we phase this in over 5 years, those folks of you living downtown who've seen the value of your property drop dramatically won't see any decline in your taxes.
You'll see increases.
Right. Whereas those of you who live on the outside will see automatic tax increases each and every year for the next 5 years, even if you vote to cut the budget. There will be the linkage between what you vote for and what you pay in taxes will be broken forever. And with that, frankly, so will our community. So we need a budget that will actually bring costs in line with our ability to pay them. It has to reduce. That's the first thing a budget has to do.
And you have to do that by consolidating functions, such as the financial function between the town and the education side of the house. It has to be on one system, one set of software, with one person looking over it, so we can go to an auditor and you can get an audit. I mean, we don't have audits. We don't know how the money is spent. I mean, at the town meeting, we had a plethora of education people stand up and say, we need to do this, we need to do that, we need, you know, to shut all 3 schools and bring a new one. You won't be doing anything if you don't get an audit and tell people where you're spending the money, how it's being spent, number one, and number two, throw somebody a bone and do something such as consolidate the financial systems. There is more money sloshing around in the education side. I mean, they retired people in the K through 8 system. They gave them a lump sum payment to their 403 plan. They did the same thing in Gilbert. Okay, they retired people. Where's this money coming from? It's coming from the budget. They had, what, $100 and something thousand of returning to the town. Folks, there's more than enough money because the number of kids is decreased dramatically, and the situation is that your education budget has to come down to meet the town's ability to pay.
So reduce, cut the cost of services to the point where we can actually afford them. Restructure, make sure that those services that are provided as efficiently as possible, so that we're not wasting money doing the same thing twice. So we're not wasting money on services that don't actually work. So we're not wasting money doing things that we don't have to do to begin with. We need to choose, ladies and gentlemen. The whole point about restructuring is prioritizing and choosing. The school board presented all of the wonderful programs that they intended to fill up the schools with. And that's fine. They can fill up every square inch, as they say, with all sorts of wonderful programs. We can have after-school programs, we can have night programs, we can have programs for this and that, we can have programs for other towns. We do that already. A good portion of the schools who are supposedly, of the students, I beg your pardon, who are supposedly filling up our schools, we don't have to provide an education for at all. We have a legally defined education mission. That's K through 12. If we're able to do things around the margin, in addition to that, that's a good thing. But let's get the K through 12 thing done right. Then we can start spending money on other things. And we are not getting the K through 12 done right. It's not being done efficiently, and it's not being done successfully.
The 9 through 12, the Gilbert mission is now being structured to bring in foreign students. Part of that burden, half of the salary of the new headmaster is being paid for by the town of Winchester to bring in foreign kids to attend the Gilbert School. His first statement in the paper was he needed an admissions director. So the administrative function grows exponentially before you get one kid here. And it's not even aligned with the mission of the 7 through 9 or 7 through 12 for the town of Winchester. I mean, you just wonder where this is all going.
Now, I will admit that as a Gilbert board member, I can tell you that the China aspects of the Gilbert administration are being paid by the trust and not by the town. But I think John's point is a good point, which is we have an administrative structure between our two schools that is ballooning. It increases each and every year. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger. It's a many-headed beast. And we can't afford it. It's that simple.
I will go back, and unless you can correct me, but the headmaster was being half paid by the Gilbert Trust and half paid by the Gilbert School.
The superintendent is paid, yeah, paid by both.
And I'm going to say it again, the Gilbert School, the central funds from the Gilbert School are from the town.
Well, arguably the trust's funds are from its endowment, but some of that will be from the surplus from the town in addition.
There you go.
But, yeah. We quibble. We can't be expected to agree on everything all of the time. But again, what do we need the budget to do? Reduce. We got to bring costs back in line with our ability to pay. Restructure. We got to make sure that the costs that we have are well spent. We're getting things that we want, that we need, that we have to do, that are effective, that don't involve waste or duplication. And lastly, reinvest. We have to grow our town. We need a town that can actually deliver services in a sensible way without dipping into your pocket deeper every single year. That's the definition of a successful town. The ability to deliver services without crushing you with runaway taxes.
Let me just state this. When you look at the legislative aspect towards municipalities, the first thing they did in the legislative session this year was to fix the mistake for properties that were being constructed. Heretofore, there was a tax case where the defendant, or excuse me, the plaintiff won, and it said that, you know, the special master ruled that the towns cannot assess taxes on properties that are not finished, i.e. they don't have a CO or they're not being used for the purpose intended. They went back and changed that law. Okay, now the assessor can assess based on partial completion. So I mean, they just want to pull taxes out of you. Okay, the second thing was we come along and, okay, grand lists are now going down. The statute says you can only you can only phase it in over 5 years when taxes increase. Now they change it so that when taxes decrease, you can phase it in. So what does that do to properties that have seen humongous decreases? That puts an extra burden on them. What is it there for? It's not there for the average taxpayer. It's there for government to suck more money out of you.
Regrettably, the purpose of government is to finance government. You don't like to believe the purpose of government is to provide you services. It's not. The purpose of government is self-perpetuation, self-financing at your expense.
And then you look at the last piece of the puzzle. The last piece of the puzzle is if you don't pay your taxes, you get charged 1.5% every month. Simple interest, 18% a year. That used to be defined as usury. Okay, I don't know if you've been to the auction in Torrington, but there's another one coming on the 25th of August where they're auctioning off people's property, and then there's another one coming in October. And I mean, they're happening all around. If you want to keep people in their houses, you might want to think about lowering the interest rate where the Federal Reserve is, down to 1 or 2%, right, and let the people survive. So the whole legislative session and the whole effort of the Democratic Party is to secure funds for the unions.
Right. It's regrettable but true. Well, in our last 5 minutes, we're going to wrap up quickly.
Go.
The budget that we have before us, is it sustainable? Is it affordable? No. We know it's not. We know that you have told us that the things that the selectmen want to spend your money on are not what you are willing to tolerate. You voted it down twice. It's not affordable. It's not sustainable. You're not going to vote it for this time. Does it reduce? They told us it did, but it doesn't. Taxes are up. People, taxes are up. Don't believe anyone who tells you that taxes are not up. Now, there is no magic to zero. Let's be quite clear. There really isn't magic to any particular number, be it 0, up a little, or down a little. But whatever the number is, it has to be made up of line items that make sense. It has to be made up of spending that works, spending on things that we need to do, spending on things that you want to do, spending on things that are efficient, and spending on things that actually work. We can't throw away money. We can't be buying the schools pickup trucks and paying the superintendent 13% pay raises when we still have so many other things we desperately need to do. Does this budget restructure? Does it change the way we deliver services or the way we spend money to make it long-term sustainable? No. No, it does not. 3 critical areas. Staffing, the way we staff our services. Benefits, the way we pay our staff. And fixed asset utilization. All 3 desperately need rationalization, restructuring. This budget does nothing. We need to put the majority of our staff on a part-time basis. so that we can truly maximize the efficiency of Town Hall and DPW, the police department, and all the rest of it. This budget doesn't do it. We have to trim benefit costs. We cannot afford to pay to provide free health care to employees' families. Can't do it. No one else does it. No one. We have benefit plans that haven't been seen anywhere outside Winsted in decades. We can't afford it. Fixed asset utilization. Whether it be the schools, whether it be the water sewer, whatever it may be, we have to start using our assets smarter. This is what we mean by restructuring. And that's before we get to the bigger issue of, are there services that we currently provide that we either don't need or simply can't afford? All I'm talking about is how do we provide the services that we currently have in a more efficient manner. Reinvestment. And this is sort of the elephant in the room, ladies and gentlemen. George Clausen will tell you, we're reinvesting. We're putting $20,000 into regs. Regs don't bring businesses to town. Regs don't bring residences to town. Regs don't bring developers to town. Regs is just employing a consultant. George does business in every township in the Northeast. He's seen every set of regulations out there. George knows what we need for regs. Just get ahead and write them, George. You don't need a consultant. The neighborhood revitalization. We've been arguing for it. They put $20,000 into it. It's a start, they say. No, it's not. If you have 25 leaks in your house, if your house is about to fall down because the rain is pouring in, if you can't cook dinner for your children because every pot and pan is collecting rainwater, you have a problem. So if you take $100 and you buy some shingles and you repair one of those 25 leaks, have you made progress? No. You've still got 24 leaks. Your house is still going to fall down. You're still going to get mold. You still can't cook your children dinner, and now you're at $100. That's what this is, ladies and gentlemen. $20,000 in neighborhood revitalization is silly. It's 2 houses. 2 houses is not going to change anything. We need to be setting aside incentives to convert 50 or 100 houses from multifamily rentals into single-family ownership. That's what we need. For reinvestment, we need a real partnership with a real downtown developer, someone with credibility. We need a partnership to build roads and infrastructure. We need a partnership to rebuild credibility from our schools so that we don't spend our time laughing at our Board of Education and everything that they tell us. This is what we need, ladies and gentlemen, and this is what we are not being delivered. One quick note for the future. Our town leaders have been invited to Hartford to explain why once again we have no audit. Last year we were 11 months late. This year we're about to hit month 9. How do you think the state of Hartford is going to react when they are told that the town manager put a transition for Henry in the budget and the selectmen took it out? How do you think that they're going to react when they are told that we chose to buy a pickup truck and give our superintendent a pay raise instead of putting in financial controls into our school system and into our town? Hartford is going to react badly, ladies and gentlemen, just as they are going to react badly when they hear that we have just fired, effectively, the largest and most experienced municipal auditor in the state. September 8th, ladies and gentlemen, is the next budget referendum. We will be voting no because this budget does nothing to address our problems. It increases taxes on pay and benefits and consultants and nothing productive, nothing of value. We hope that you will be voting. If I just said we will be voting yes, that was a huge misstatement. We will be voting no on September 8th, and we hope that you will be voting no also.
Saturday, September 8th, Pearson School, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and we will see you next week, shortly before the referendum.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.